Yo, what's going on guys, it's G-Miners here. As most people know, with Void 3.0 out, Weapons of Light got a huge nerf from a 35% damage buff down to a 25% buff. This is equivalent now to Well of Radiance, so Titan Bubble is going to be essentially useless for DPS. I wanted to find a replacement 35% damage buff that could be easily used and works in Witch Queen, which is what this video is covering. Me and a buddy figured this out after a little bit of testing, and all you need for this is going to be 2 Warlocks with the exotic leg armor boots of the Assembler. This works both with Empowering Rift and with Well of Radiance, so this will be useful for something like a long-term DPS phase like Morgath, and short-term repeated DPS phases like Shirochi. By placing down an Empowering Rift, for example, any Warlock with Boots of the Assembler standing in the Rift will spawn Noble Seekers for everyone that is not in the Rift. These will spawn once every 8 seconds. When the Seeker hits an ally, this will provide them with the buff Blessing of the Sky for 5 seconds. This means there will be a downtime on this buff of 3 seconds, but by having 2 of these Warlocks, it will allow them to alternate when they spawn these Noble Seekers and permanently keep this buff up at all times. The Seekers also have a small AoE, so players next to each other can benefit from the same Seeker. The only issue you'll run into is that when using something like Well of Radiance, you will not be able to sit in the well and get healing and receive this damage buff. Once again, the Noble Seekers only spawn for players that are outside of wells and rifts. With this, the Warlocks who are running Boots of the Assembler should also not stay inside the rift or well, so they too can get this buff. By dipping into the well for a second or two, you are able to spawn Seekers for every player, including yourself. Spawning every Seeker does take around 1 full second, as they don't all spawn at once. After stepping back out of the well, if timed properly, there is a high chance for the extra Seeker that you spawned to track to and hit yourself. This means that both players with the boots can also have 100% uptime on this buff for themselves as well. So this is essentially better than the old Weapons of Light, as it can be maintained without needing to go back into the bubble. To make this even more consistent, I recommend having 3 Warlocks on Boots of the Assembler, as this will just spawn more Noble Seekers more frequently. This should easily allow your team to maintain 100% uptime on this buff. With 2 players, this needs to be executed perfectly for 100% uptime, so there is just more room for error with 3 people. If you need Lunafaction Boots for extra reload speed, this can still be done as long as you have enough Warlocks. All you need to do is step into the well or rift, press reload, and step out. This will apply the increased reload to your player as long as your reload starts inside of the well or rift. If for some reason you think this is too hard or you don't have enough Warlocks to do this, then you can always use the exotic hand cannon Lumina to get the same buff. You can hold 5 Noble Seekers, which can give your whole team this buff for a damage phase. This provides the same Blessing of Sky buff, but lasts 10 seconds rather than the 5. You can do this right as a damage phase starts, and with the 40% buff to miners, this makes Lumina a lot more viable in endgame PvE. This is super easy to execute with only a little bit of practice, and it will still obviously stack with a debuff like Tether or Divinity. If you found this video useful, don't forget to like and sub down below. Subbing is completely free, helps me out a ton, and you can always change your mind later. That's all for this video, guys. Peace.